is Dawn Johnson. I am the new vice president here at the Bowling Green Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm very excited to be here and be hosting this Business at its Best seminar, which the topic today is a how-to guide for reentering your workplace. And it's reentering the workplace is such a crazy concept for all of us to think of right now, I think. And no matter where you are, what you've been doing in your life and your career, this is definitely unprecedented times. And it's going to be, I hope it's to hear a lot of really interesting things. So I do look forward to getting to know all of you and understanding what the partnership is and resume sort of a new normal in this world. We do have a few housekeeping things today before we get started. This session is being recorded, so please keep your mics on mute for the duration of the presentation. If you have questions, you can submit those via the chat window at any time, and we will make sure that those questions get answered, but at the conclusion of the presentation. Katie will be posting, if she hasn't done it already, a chat on how to do that. And then we will read your questions to Kim at the end so they can answer. Before we get started, we do have a sponsor that we need to make sure that we thank for their support, and Graves Gilbert Clinic, and they are the title sponsor for Business at its Best series, and they have a short clip for us.
At Graves Gilbert Clinic, their top priority is the health and safety of their patients, employees, and visitors. And because of that, Graves Gilbert Clinic is now offering telehealth visits, which allows patients and physicians to use an app to communicate via video chat. Any patient who would like to schedule a telehealth appointment is encouraged to call their Graves Gilbert Clinic physician's office directly or call the Graves Gilbert Clinic telehealth hotline at 270-746-5790.
Awesome. Thank you, Kenzie. And thank you, Graves Gilbert Clinic. It is my pleasure today to introduce today's speakers, Jessica Hardin and Sandra Stokley. Jessica has been with ID&A for 14 years and has served in a number of positions before taking her current role as sales manager for the state of Kentucky. She's based in Lexington. Based in Lexington, Sandra serves as an account executive for ID&A and focuses her efforts on assisting corporate clients, K through 12, higher education, and healthcare entities overcoming challenges within their workroom or the workspace, classroom. And Jessica and Sandra, both thank you for partnering in with us, and I am going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome to a beautiful Thursday in the Bluegrass. Before we get things kicked off, Jessica and I just appreciate the opportunity to spend a few minutes here with you today and talk about a very challenging time that honestly we're all going through, COVID-19. So before we get started, I will tell you that, man, I love me some Bowling Green. That is a very sincere statement. I'm a graduate of Western Kentucky University, and honest to goodness, some of my best years in my life have been spent in Bowling Green. And so I'm blessed with this opportunity with ID&A to be able to return to Bowling Green at least once a week and work with folks like yourself. So we're talking today as to how to figure out how to manipulate and to work around COVID-19. And as I've talked to companies in several states over the last few weeks, I think there is one general consensus, and it's just not an easy thing to navigate. And hopefully Jessica and I, with the information we're going to provide you today and all the research that honestly we've been doing as a company for about 2 months now regarding COVID-19 and what this new normal is all about, hopefully you'll walk away with some really good information regarding what you kind of need to start thinking about to have your folks come in safely back to the workplace. Before we get to that, though, we want to introduce ourselves to you and let you know who ID&A is. I get asked all the time, what does ID&A stand for? Well, it's top secret, but I'm going to let you in on it. It stands for Interior Design and Architecture. And we actually have two divisions that are very well defined in our title. We have an interior design division, and we have an interior architectural division. We have been in business just under 40 years. And I'm sure as business members like yourself, you would agree that You don't get to be around these parts in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee for nearly 4 decades unless you're doing a whole lot of things right. We have 30+ year relationships within our company, within corporate and higher ed, K through 12 relationships. And we like to discuss it as we're trusted advisors. The absolute last thing that we want to do when we show up to help you with your space, the last thing on our mind is to sell you something. That is the absolute, it goes against our grain. We consider ourselves trusted advisors and consultants to make sure that we are successfully implementing what you need to achieve your goals. With that, obviously, it takes a ton of special employees on our side. We've got just under 55 employees, and like I mentioned earlier, we're in 4 locations. We're in Evansville, Nashville, Lexington, and just a few miles up the street here from Bowling Green, our headquarters is in Louisville. We have 11 interior designers, several project managers. I think the takeaway from our services side is that we both have that creative service side and that technical service side. So we are a complete discipline when we come to your workplace to help you out. And something that we're extremely proud of and continue to achieve even a higher satisfaction rate is every time that we complete a project for a client, whether it's one chair or whether it's a 5,000 person workstation, we send them a survey. And I can tell you, I'm as guilty as probably half of you all are in that I delete those surveys a lot when people send them to me because I think nobody ever listens to those surveys. Nobody ever reads them. I can assure you that ID&A does. Everyone from our leadership team all the way down the ranks. And it's because we're all financially tied to it. You know, I said, we never want to sell you anything. Well, we never want to meet your expectations. Our goal always is to exceed your expectations. And in 2019, we did that on 98.7% of our projects. We're very proud of that. Equally, we are as proud of our partnerships. We have about 150 different manufacturers that we work with, but we're very proud and honored to be an exclusive dealer, a 35-year exclusive partnership with Herman Miller within the state of Kentucky. And Herman Miller is a powerhouse in the furnishings market. They are a powerhouse manufacturer and they have a lot of great design and very competitive prices to help folks like yourself. So we're just, we're very excited about our partnerships. We also have an exclusive partnership with Dirt. Everybody's like, with Dirt, that's, you know, what I clean out of my house. That's true, but we tend to think of it in a little bit of different terms. Dirt is a Canadian manufacturer. It actually stands for Do It Right This Time, and it's the interior construction part of our business. So just a quick overview of who ID&A is and why we are coming to you this afternoon to discuss COVID-19. Speaking of COVID-19, boy, it's a journey, isn't it? And it's certainly not over. As I alluded to earlier, myself and Jessica and everybody within ID&A, we have been working, researching, believe it or not, reading medical journals over the past 2 months to try and gain some understanding of this new normal and kind of where we fall, and to be able to be a trusted advisor for folks like yourself and help you develop plans as we move into the new normal. You know, we all went through, on that left side of the curve, we all went through that shock and realization. You know, I've certainly never lived through anything like this, and I dare say you haven't either. It's one thing to have a financial crisis, but it's also another thought process to have potential death associated with it. So it's been mind-boggling to say the least. We feel like in our research that most companies kind of fall in that bottom of the trough there, where we're now beginning to realize, hey, this is here, the shock factor is kind of over, now we've got to respond. What do we do to make sure that our employees are safe and our bottom line is healthy as we move forward? So we're into that productivity challenge portion. That's where most companies are, and I will tell you that's where ID&A is as well. I think the main takeaway is that there are so many opinions and there are so many feelings out in the marketplace. You got to deal with facts. You just have to set your plan based on facts. And obviously, as you grow through that plan, you develop some really good space planning ideas and some various different plans, if you will, to make sure that you're successful moving forward. Name of the game is we all want to be employed. We all want to be having healthy bottom lines. And so how do we get through that together? And while we're in that productivity challenge phase, Obviously, there's multiple different phases to go through, and we're going to talk about that as we move through our presentation. So let's talk about it. Returning to your workplace. You know, someone said the other day, we just got to keep people 6 feet away from each other. True, but there's so much more to that than just the social distancing. You've got to ask yourself some hard questions, and the answers have to be very thought-provoking. You have to put some time into it. You know, where is your level of understanding with where we are right now? How are you going to implement those published guidelines moving forward? How are you going to communicate that to your folks? How are you going to enforce it within your 4 walls? Those are all real questions that every business, including ID&A, has to take a look at. Do you have a work from home program? If so, great. How has it been going since, you know, probably, I dare say most of us have been working from home since mid-March. How has it been working? Have we been successful? What do we need to change? Because as we'll talk about later, we're probably going to have to be very fluid in our approach to COVID-19. Things are going to change, and we're going to have to change our approach to things as well. So really take a look at that work from home program and see how you can even better beef it up, if you will, to move forward, not only for your bottom line, but also for your team members. And then what's your plan to return to the workplace? ID&A actually returned this week to the workplace. I'm in our Lexington studio as I come to you this afternoon. And I can assure you that the in-depth planning that took place from the leadership team specifically, it's truly mind-boggling. You would think that this would be a little bit easier than it is, but it really hasn't been. And we've hit some hiccups along the way as we've gotten back to the workplace this week, but we're all growing and we're all learning from it. So my suggestion and our suggestion to you would make sure that you remain nimble as you move through this. Those are great questions to ask yourself, but really the name of the game here moving forward is resilience. And if there's one thing I can tell you today is that unfortunately there's very little consensus on how long this is going to last or what the ultimate impact will be from the economy standpoint. You know, it's interesting when we took a look at an interview that the New York Times had just a few weeks ago with about 24 experts. Those experts range from medical professionals to epidemiologists. We had some history buffs in there that were kind of taking a look at, you know, what does history tell us about COVID-19? And really the only thing that came out of that they agreed 100% on is we're in for a long haul, folks. This isn't over tomorrow. This isn't over in 2021. It's going to feel a lot better and we're going to be a lot better prepared for it, but we're in this for the long haul. Depending upon where your source of expertise lies, who you are relying upon that expertise from, some experts are saying a few months, others are saying up to 2 years. And so we're in this for the long haul. I can tell you too that as I've alluded to, you're going to have to be nimble. We anticipate that there will be spikes, maybe not in Kentucky, hopefully not in Kentucky, but throughout our country, there will continue to be spikes. And we've already seen it in neighboring countries. Go back to the workforce and then pull the reins back and go back to work from home. So we're going to have to be nimble and we're going to have to continue to make sure that our plans remain very flexible. So resilience, what do? How do you become resilient in this very strange times that we're all going through? You got to embrace this new normal. It's not going away. And I think if you've watched our governor at all during his 5 o'clock press briefings, his message is very consistent. Business as you and I saw it, felt it, lived it in February of this year is not the same as it is right now. So you've got to embrace that and really have a clear understanding of what that means. And then you've got to understand resilience. If resilience is the name of the game, you know, I'm one of those annoying folks that likes my glass half full. I tend to try and look for the positives in things. And resilience just simply means you're turning a challenge, which trust me, COVID-19 is a challenge, into an opportunity for growth. You want that grit and that tenacity to be able to come back to the workforce, maintain your bottom line, but also take care of your people. So resilience becomes this concept that no matter what size your company or what a vertical industry you're in, it doesn't matter. That's what we're all striving for. And this seems so simple to me, but it's lost, unfortunately, and it's lost across all types of businesses. But folks, your people have to come first. It's all about people. It doesn't matter about the things that are out there. When you talk about value, you're talking about your people. So whether the place that we work is remote or whether we're back into our work environment like I am here in Lexington, doesn't really matter. Our focus on the workplace must first consider the needs and the comfort of our people. And I think we all have realized throughout the years, and certainly over the last couple of months, both at the national level and the state level, that if people aren't buying into the safety precautions, or if they don't have a clear respect for what is trying to be accomplished, they will revolt and they will reject those things. So I think a key here is making sure that you're putting people first. And then obviously it goes without saying, you've got to create that purposeful variety. You've got to prioritize those workplace decisions by the work that your team and the individuals are doing. So you may want to ask yourself some very basic questions. Questions such as what job functions are critical and absolutely must return on what date to make sure that we maintain our bottom line. Another question may be, which can be more successful working remotely to create more space for others. The answers are going to vary. And there's not a lot of guarantees during this COVID-19 presentation, but I can guarantee you this. This is not a one size fits all for every company, and there's not one solid answer for every simple company. We're all very diverse in our nature. We all have very diverse working populations as well. And so you have to take all these ideas and all these thoughts and theories and kind of mold them into what's going to be right for your business to maintain that resilient workforce and effort that you're trying to achieve.
So in taking all of that into stride for your own companies, you kind of say, oh my gosh, there's so much information out there internally and externally. What do I know? What do I know about my business? And then what do we know from the world and everything that we're digging into? We at ID&A have spent 40 years essentially being a research-based, human-centered approach for our customers, the people and the companies themselves, on trying to solve problems. And some of those problems are simple. I need to fit more people into this building. And some of those are much more complicated, like infection control and prevention in healthcare situations, which we have been doing for over 20 years. And now here we are today needing to apply it to every space that any of us walk into. So we started gathering our information and saying, this is what we know from science. We all have opinions, but what can we build as far as factual documentation for all businesses, whether it's a school, a healthcare entity, or a corporate office, to create a new back to work plan that's safe and engaging and helps your employees feel like you care and that you've built an environment you want them to be safely working in. And so we are absent a vaccine. We are absent a cure for COVID-19. We have to learn to live with this right now the way it is, and that is not necessarily hiding from it. So taking into what the CDC and the WHO both agree on, we've got a small set of facts that we can start building. Some of that here seems so basic. Personal health control, if you will, being able to wash your hands and do it regularly. We all freaked out when we ran out of hand sanitizer in the stores and Clorox wipes, but there are other ways to wash our hands. We just forgot about them. Knowing that all those times that you might come to work and you didn't feel great, you had a small fever, but you're just going to go in and get your work done, you should probably be staying home. In fact, we're being told flat out, we need to be staying home if we don't feel well. And then something that was just through the American population for its loop, wearing masks. So those are just personal things that people can take into their own environment and better guarantee their safety. But thinking about an environment as a whole and what we're providing our employees, our partners to come to work in, making sure it's clean and sanitized. All of us have some sort of cleaning protocol in our office. It might just be the people that come in the evenings, the janitorial services, vacuuming in, emptying trash, and cleaning our bathrooms. That's great, but they're not sanitizing all of our work surfaces and our door handles and things that we all touch every day. So thinking about sanitation protocols and things that we need to do to our physical environments is absolutely paramount in bringing our people back into the workplace, along with maybe changing your cleaning supply regimen, getting creative, maybe calling your local distilleries and seeing what they're producing, as well as changing some things like HVAC, ventilation systems and how they're pushing and pulling through the space, as well as adding some things to those systems might be probable, depending on if you own your building or if you have the ability to do that. And we'll talk about specific solutions later. So you've got some personal things that an individual can do and that you can help them with, as well as environmental solutions that you can sort of come into your space and look at. And then kind of thinking about ourselves as a working community in every business that we're in, really pushing and reminding our folks about physical distancing. I have this problem. I am a smack you on the back type of girl, so I have to really take a moment and remember in an environment that I just shouldn't walk up to someone and get in their bubble. Signage helps with that. Hearing that message repeatedly helps. And then of course, if you need to close your facility, if someone was sick, that you're being flexible, as Sandra mentioned, that you have a plan to shut down, everyone go home, or maybe they're off for a couple of days. We sanitize and prepare for everyone that's not sick to come right back in and keep working. So a lot of that is partnerships, but some of it is personal, some of it is a responsibility of a business owner and a leadership team on planning and strategy. And then we talk a little bit about changing our behaviors and setting that to reduce the risk of infection. As we've dug into the medical journals, and that's no joke, we can send you our sources. It was very interesting reading that we reduce the spread of germs, any and all germs, by 85% just by taking into hand washing, covering our coughs or wearing masks, that sort of thing, and cleaning the physical environment that we touch often, thinking about your personal desk or your workstation, keyboard trays, etc. To reduce that infection amount in an entire office space for every employee by 85% is huge. That alone takes away most of what we all encounter. And then that 15% that's still out there, we have a little bit more work to do to cover that ground. So taking in a bundled approach, if you will, is how we've titled it here, to influence change in your company, among your leadership teams and your stakeholders and employees, and saying, we have done a service to create a safe space for you to come back to work in this physical environment. We've given you some tools to take care of yourself personally. We are taking a teacher stance and putting factual guidelines in front of everyone and reminding everyone to utilize, as well as updating those guidelines. I don't know about you, but my family has a 5 o'clock routine right now, and that is providing us some new information. Not necessarily new information every day, but as it comes in, updating your team, updating your company, and letting people know what the current status quo is going to be until more information is available. And then physically looking at our built environment, which we're going to do in the 4th section here of our presentation. But what can you do, minor tweaks or changes you can make to make your physical environment safer from that standpoint without a person being involved. And then how do we influence that change? I don't know about you, but we've had many conversations over the 14 years I've been here about change, whether that is how we create a culture change, how we learn to wash our dishes and not leave them sitting outside the dishwasher in all of our cafe spaces, all the little things that we all go through. How do we influence that change? And a lot of this comes straight from the top. Nobody wants to hear that. It sounds so cliche, but if your leadership team is prepared and involved, along with the stakeholder employees that you have, of how do we practice a safe behavior here? We don't have any negative Nellies in the room. We just want to see what can we do that's positive for everybody in a building, whether that is shift work, maybe changing who's in the office when, maybe deciding that some roles are just really better served from home. I had a conversation with a call center about 2 weeks ago. They said, we are flying through calls now. People are doing so well at home. They did not expect the level of productivity they had. So they learned that certain groups in their call center were really functioning well at home, and they were considering letting them make that choice. Other groups, they said, weren't doing so well at home, and they wanted them back in the space as fast as possible. So that's what Sandra was mentioning about this is not a one-size-fits-all approach. I can't wave a wand and tell you how to get all of your people back to work right now. I would love to, trust me. But what can we do as an organization with you to help put out the behaviors that you need, help you roll out processes based on sanitation company guidelines, based on the CDC and OSHA, and depending on your environment, maybe even what your landlord brings to the table if you're in a shared building space. And then what changes might you want to make to that physical space to be prepared? One thing without any of the others really doesn't do us a ton of good. So we have to put all of these blocks together to really build a change that is helping you get to return to work. And of course, that's different for everybody, but that is part of what we're here for. Bouncing ideas off of each other, introducing other partners that might be helpful in the community. I know I've met so many businesses over the last 2 months that I am counting their weight in gold for saving us and getting us back into our office a little bit faster than we thought we would be.
So as we return to the workplace, there's a lot of consideration that has to go into it. And as we've alluded to, we're all pretty much glued to the 4 or 5 p.m. updates, depending upon where you live in the state of what the governor's doing. And I think we could probably all regurgitate these pretty easily, but just to go over them quickly, this is the directive as of May 5th. I checked before we jumped on this call. It does not look like anything has changed, but these are the 10 golden rules, if you will, for reopening your business under the governor's Healthy at Work plan. So he is suggesting that you continue the telework where possible. Have that phased return to work, and we'll talk about ID&A specifically here in a few moments and further explain that. On-site temperature and health checks. This is a true story. I had a couple client calls on Tuesday of this week, and by the time I had hit 1:30 in the afternoon, I'd had 5 temperature checks. I don't know that my temperature has been checked 5 times in the last 25 years, but it was on Tuesday. And I can tell you from a mindset from someone that was just trying to conduct business and go throughout whatever a new normal workday looks like, it became frustrating. But at the same point in time, it's absolutely needed. And I totally respect why we're doing it. But just be prepared. You're going to have a lot of digital thermometers pointed at you over the next several months or until we get a vaccine. Jessica talked a little bit about PPE and the universal masks. ID&A issued, as I mentioned, we came back to work this week. ID&A issued all of us a mask to wear. And so if I wasn't in a conference room by myself presenting to you, and Jessica as well, we would be in masks right now to not only protect ourselves, but protect others. Close those common areas. That is a very unpopular decision from no matter what level of the company you're in, but it's an absolute necessity. We have closed our lunchroom areas, and albeit small in our studios, we still don't want those folks congregating because obviously we've learned through our research and the governor's remarks, that's how this virus spreads. You have to enforce social distancing. Boy, Jessica and I are probably the poster children for what not to do, because she and I both are very, we're both extroverts rather. We are both touchy-feely, if you will, appropriately, but nonetheless, we believe in handshakes and hugs. That's going to be a drastic change for everyone moving forward. Jess and I were talking yesterday as it's different. As I approach a client, I'm trying to read them as to whether or not they want me closer than 6 feet, or do they really believe in handshakes still to this day. Regardless of what your beliefs are, the governor says, close common, enforce that social distancing regardless. Limit face-to-face meetings. I'm telling you, I am intimately involved now with Zoom and Microsoft Teams. And, you know, ID&A didn't use this mechanism very much prior to COVID-19. We always had it at our disposal. But again, going back to our business practices, I like to sit across the table from you. So you have to put those things into place. Sanitizer and hand wash stations. We've probably got within the Lexington studio 4 or 5 locations where there's sanitizer, and there's also cleaning supplies set up. So those are our cleaning stations that we can get to fairly easy. Any type of special accommodations that your company may have, you need to take that into consideration. And then what happens if one of those 5 temperature checks I had on Tuesday that I spiked a 99.1 temperature? What is the testing plan for your business? How are you going to tell that employee where and when to go get tested? You got to have all of that type of stuff figured out. So this looks mind-boggling. The good news is I understand it, so it really isn't. This is basically a graph that shows, just takes one entity of what we're dealing with right now, work from home. For most of us, that was somewhat of a new concept for most businesses out there. And it takes the work from home and it says, based on your external environment, which is over on the left side, and then based on your workplace environment, this is how many, or what percentage, if you will, of your workforce should be working from home. So let's take ID&A as an example. Our external environment, we don't have a lot of control over that. I think, and research shows that we're probably in that second block right now. You've got some corporate offices that are open, albeit very limited. You've got the social distancing moderately monitored. If you're going to Houchins or Kroger's or Walmart, you're likely getting you're getting counted as you go through the door, so to ensure that there's enough space within their floor plate for social distancing. According to our governor, we've got a pretty decent amount of COVID-19 testing, and I know that Bowling Green is seeing quite a few cases of COVID-19, but statewide, we're really somewhat still plateaued, which is great news. So if you take that box and you go down and you look at your specific workplace, for ID&A, we fall in that first gray box. We thankfully have very few higher risk employees within our organization. We can certainly compartmentalize within all of our studios, and we have, to make sure that we manage that risk that we all know is COVID-19 right now. And like I said earlier, we have some PPE. We were issued a mask as soon as we returned back to work. So based on this copulation, if you will, about 60% of us should be working from home. This is what Jones Lang said, and you can see the source at the bottom right. And so how we're accomplishing that, we will talk to you here about that in a few minutes. But we probably have about 65 to 70% of our workforce working from home by alternating weeks. So this is kind of the graph that we're living by, and this is what we're telling our clients. You know, because like I said earlier, work from home was somewhat of a new concept. How do you manage it? How do you figure out when you bring everybody back to the workplace? Well, right now, according to all the research and the experts, bringing everyone back at one time certainly is not favorable. So this is a graph that could maybe help you figure out where you fall within the work from home category. So once you get back to the office, what does it look like? And I can tell you it looks differently. And from those few clients that I have visited with this week, boy, it looks differently regardless of what office you're in, whether it be yours or you're visiting someone else. As Jessica alluded to early on, you've got to increase that ventilation rate. I like to think of this as an airplane. We've all heard, obviously, when you're 35,000 feet up in the air, you're breathing recycled air. And sometimes medical journals throughout the years have suggested that air is stale, or it can become stale and possibly attached to germs. And therefore, you're inhaling that as you breathe. So the same concept could go to mind when you go back to work. You know, speaking in specifically leased spaces, you probably don't have a lot of access to HVAC systems to be able to impact this. Think outside of the box a little bit. Think about air purification systems. That's a very inexpensive resource that you can pop up, you know, however many feet within your organization and circulate that air to keep it fresh. So keep that in mind. Obviously, reducing that density platform. You know, we have a rotating schedule within ID&A, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But if it's not our week to be in the office, we need to sign up to come into the office or let leadership know. And that seems so foreign. It's my office, it's my workplace, I'm supposed to go there. But again, the goal is to reduce density so that we're not all on top of each other and in each other's 6-foot bubble, if you will. And you know, the name of the game is, if you can work from home, you're successful working from home, you probably should continue to be doing that right now. Capture those temperatures. I'm not going to belabor this point anymore. It's absolutely needed. Be prepared, though, that some of your team members may get somewhat frustrated with this as you go through the process. Look, I have been coming into the office for 16 straight days. My temperature has always been 98.6. I'm the perfect poster child. Why are you taking it again today? Be prepared for those conversations, because that's going to happen. People's willingness to comply and be understanding as all levels of frustration increase throughout the throughout this process. Just be ready to have those conversations. And it doesn't only go for employees. I know we have a policy at ID&A. If the UPS folks drop off a package and they are in our space, we need to be taking some temperatures. If a visitor comes in, we're going to be taking some temperatures. So think about that as well. And those entry procedures for the workplace, temperature rechecks. If someone were to go, you know, back in the good old day when we could go to a restaurant, when restaurants do open again, and they will, if someone goes to lunch and comes back, you may want to think about doing a re-temperature check. That's going to be dependent upon what your tolerance is for COVID-19, but it's something to think about. Like I said earlier, ID&A, we're wearing masks. I mean, I feel like a bank robber every single day when I walk into my space. It's just something foreign. I'm not in healthcare, so and I can tell you it's not comfortable. It takes some getting used to, but it's absolutely necessary. And hand sanitizer, I pretty much OD'd on hand sanitizer before this, and my level, I just smell like alcohol all day long now because I use so much hand sanitizer, but it's proven to work. And the name of the game in all of this is simple safety for your team members. Obviously, cleaning and disinfecting your facilities twice daily. We have one individual in each of our studios throughout ID&A that's responsible for cleaning twice a day. And sometimes we clean 3 times a day, depending upon who's in the area. So again, be nimble and be flexible, but make sure this is on your radar. So this employee well-being, we've talked a lot about, hey, business, this is kind of what you need to do. But the National Institute for Occupational Safety has actually outlined the fact that, and this isn't a new concept, but as we reference it in COVID-19, it may strike a chord here. You've got to have the total body. You've got to have total wellness, if you will, from your team members, keeping in mind that people are your most valuable asset. And as Jessica said a few moments ago, it has to start at the top. It really does. I can tell you as an employee, I'm looking to Jessica and her colleagues at the leadership level to see how her attitude is about things. How nimble are they being? Are they really caring for me? Do they really care about me? I'm looking to the top to make sure that I see that demonstration that I need. So depending upon it doesn't really matter about your organization. It comes from the top down. You might need to design some work to eliminate or reduce safety and health hazards and promote worker well-being. That goes without saying. If we need to change some work guidelines or take some work off your plate so that you can be fully well-being, if you will, then that's what we need to do. You got to promote and support that worker engagement. If I'm engaged in the plan, I'm going to buy into it much better than if I'm just, being told what to do all the time. So maybe the answer is to get a committee together and make sure that the employees have a voice as you develop this plan. Confidentiality is a big thing. I would love for you to think of your workplaces now as HIPAA regulated, like the healthcare community is. As an example of that, we have one person assigned in every studio and only one to take temperatures. We don't want somebody to spike a temperature and then be, humiliated by their coworkers and this level of fear trickle throughout the organization. So you've got to ensure that confidentiality and privacy of workers. And then, you know, it goes without saying, you've got to continue to develop and integrate, if you will, the relevant systems to advance worker well-being. This isn't a May game only. This continues on, and you've got to maintain that focus on your people.
So how do we focus? Where do we take it? Where do we put it? What do we do to our own physical spaces? We have lists of questions that we can ask depending on your environment or your workplace, or leadership team style and the type of work being done. Everything from headcounts to, you know, where you are as a company productivity wise and what you need over the next several weeks and months. But taking into design considerations, we had to laugh here. We do space planning for a living. We design spaces. We know all about space, but what is appropriately 6 feet? So I had to laugh as I sat in my chair and measured 6 feet out around me. It was much further than I thought it was going to be. So we're actually kind of implementing another thing this week as we spent a few days back in the office of marking off 6 feet away from people's chairs, just very nondescript, nothing big. It's just painter's tape on the carpet, but just understanding if you're 6 feet away from me, you may have encroached on someone else. So looking at how the guidelines stand from the CDC and from WHO on how we stay 6 feet apart from one another, how do we minimize face-to-face interaction? Maybe now instead of working in teams facing one another in our workstations, we're facing apart instead. So thinking about that, as well as maybe changing up our work style or times of day that employees are coming into the office. This is a quick snip of a fairly large floor plan because everybody's space is different, and understanding what 6 feet really makes come alive, right? So on the left side, you see that the lady, you have the little bubbles, and you see that the lady is actually encroaching on the gentleman's workspace. He doesn't have a choice. He's sitting there, he's at work, he's engaged. She has to make that choice in moving through the space to not encroach on him. The other desks are unoccupied. She could have went around to the right. So just thinking about that in your own spaces is very important. And there's other things about circulation that we'll include. As a sampling on the right side, you see an idea of all these green bubbles are where people can work. But every little circle is where somebody could have sat in February. But today, we're saying this particular floor plan, if we made no changes to it, is about half to 65% occupied. We would have to take the guest chairs out of private offices. Only one person could work in that room, or two in some of the larger spaces. Meeting rooms are only going to be able, in this particular plan, to be occupied at about 25%, 30%, compared to the number of chairs in the room. Depending on the layout of a workstation, if you notice up here in the center, it looks like a typical benching, hoteling workstation. Everybody can't sit there and hold hands anymore and share a sandwich and chips. So we're going to stagger those people throughout that spot. But over on the other side, you see workstations where, you know, somebody's talking to the back of somebody else's head. They likely have higher walls in between them, and those workstations are able to be utilized every day, all at the same time. So just depending on a space would depend on physical solutions and planning guides that we would bring to the market, and also the type of work that you do. This is our own ID&A studio. So as you look at ourselves, over on the left side is our floor plan, just as it was. Over on the right, this is our first step back into coming to work. So we have some users, the green bubbles, that are at work every day, all day. And I have to tell you, that's our leadership team in accounting. The people that have to sign the paychecks and the other checks, we need them to come to work. I'm sure you guys do too. And then we have two teams, Team A and Team B. They are working on opposite weeks in the office. So this week, first week back, Team A is here, Team B is at home, and they are all working from home. Then we have a few individuals that are more of a flex worker. That means they're going to decide when they need to come in, but 90% of the time they're going to work from home, and that's for health purposes. They came to us for one reason or another, and actually some of that is also because of childcare. As I look at who those yellow dots are, it's reminding me we have tons of children at home right now, and daycares and schools are closed. I know you guys feel that pain as much as I do. So some of the users just cannot physically be here every day, but they are perfectly fine at home and working, and we're making that flexible schedule for them. If you also notice, we have another little key chart down here that shows that we have temperature screening at our back door. That's our main entrance from our employee parking lot. We need to drop another A at our reception desk because she's temperature screening any guests that might come into the space. We have cleaning stations marked in Bs, and they are all around our circulation points throughout the studio, as well as actual hand washing stations with running water. The cleaning stations all have spray cleaner, spray, sanitizer, alcohol mixtures, as well as hand sanitizer pumps, tissues, paper towels, and masks. And then we also have, as you see in the asterisk, tissues, cleaner, anything we could think of that you might need to quickly grab or to clean up in all of those spaces. We went through, because of the lack of hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies in the space, we were able to buy bulk alcohol mixed cleaning solutions. And we were also able to buy some bulk hand sanitizer from distilleries. So we just went on good old Amazon and bought some nondescript aluminum cleaning bottles, as well as personal hand sanitizer containers for each of our employees. And we have the giant refill bottles being handled by our cleaning staff each week. So that was kind of our first stab at putting together a plan, seeing how it works with Team A this week. We had to make an immediate adjustment for food delivery as we closed our cafe space completely. And we made that on Monday. As soon as lunch started, people started to say, are we going to order out? Are we calling Uber Eats? Can they come in? So we put a cart in our vestibule to accept lunch deliveries for no contact delivery. And that just kind of helps everybody have an easy spot to come to work and still order their favorite tacos on Cinco de Mayo. If you look at these two plans, this shows a bit of a circulation pattern. And in this particular floor plan where cleaning and sanitizing stations would be. The pictures on the left side show some ideas that are actually out in the market, but these are our personal space, the individual masks for each employee. The Team A walked into their workstation with their little care pack from all of us. I've worked really hard on a lot of Amazon ordering, let me tell you, over the last few weeks. I suggest you get started if you haven't. And having sanitation carts, so those can move throughout the space. If you have a group that's maybe not in that day, we're not tying it to a physical spot. We could just move that cart to a new place for cleaning. Oh, excuse me. So as we kind of talk through what's the reality of coming back to work, we've had, what do you consider as a business owner? What do you have to consider legally from the government? Maybe you're a landlord and there are implications on your space. Then how do we physically look at our employees and our staff and say, what are they doing? How do they function? Who do we need back? When do we need them back? And then what do you have as a responsibility for an employee to let those people feel safe on their way in? I was really surprised, happily surprised, to see how excited our staff were to come back into the office. Sandra's nodding. Every day she was calling me asking if she could come back. But they saw the level of care and the level of work that we were putting in as a leadership team to make sure that they were back, but they were back as safely as we could all handle. So I'm in this very big giant conference room alone with a bunch of cleaning solutions, but everybody's happy for that. So we wanted to sort of bring this gathering of knowledge to you all and hope that it helps your leadership teams put together a solid plan or figure out where you want to start and engage, you know, your local companies. We found a local sanitation company we never knew existed. So on top of our normal office cleaning each weekend, a high healthcare division sanitation company comes in and they wear full hazmat suits and they clean our entire facility with UV light for regular germs. Those don't take care of COVID, we know, thank you. But they are taking care of all the regular germs that we bring in and out of the space, as well as the bleach cleaning and that sort of thing. So that was our own approach. We hope that it helps you all and gave you some fresh thoughts and ideas to start planning your return to work.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica and Sandra. I want to open it up to questions. I'm on my phone, so I apologize. I don't see the chat. So Katie, were there any questions that came up on the chat?
We haven't had any yet, but we did have some technical difficulties with our chat at first. So if you have one and weren't able to submit it originally, please do try again.
Thank you. Or you can unmute yourself and ask a question too. That would work.
Matt Bacon asked if today's recordings and slides will be available. That is a yes. They will be made available on the Business at Its Best portal on bgchamber.com under Partners Only. And there you'll be able to find our other recordings from our Business at Its Best series as well.
Thank you, Kenzie. Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. It's the little things that we take for granted and don't think about so much, and like veering away from a person to keep that distance, and having posted signs about where the where you can wash your hands and or get soap sanitizer, things like that. Those are really important. And we want to also mention that we are trying to keep our partners and area businesses up to date daily with information from the local, the state, and the federal level COVID calls that are happening. That information can be found on bgchambercovid.com. So again, if you have daily information, if there are any other questions or any comments.
Yes, we do have a question.
Okay.
Tammy says, we are in an office environment. Do you recommend closing break areas completely, including microwave and vending machines?
One of the things that's been asked, we're smaller in number of people, and we took away the seating in our cafe areas. You know, depending on where you're at and the lack of restaurants open around you, you definitely want people to be able to eat. I would say leave your microwaves and vending machines open, but maybe put a sanitation, kit or station next to them, so people feel comfortable wiping down that vending machine before they, order something, and wiping it off again with that same wipe, as they're finished. That's what we're doing as we go in and out of our conference room doors. We have a little kit right inside the room, so when you enter, you close the doors with your sanitation wipe, and then you open them back up with the same one and toss it out when you're done. So just a little thing like that, and allow people to still be comfortable and bring their own food, especially if they don't want takeout. But they are either going back to their desk or maybe to an outside space or their car to avoid sitting together. We love people. We all want to eat together.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again. Excuse me. Jessica and Sandra, couldn't talk there for a second. We're very, very grateful that you took the time to put this together and present to us. Like I said, it's a lot of good information. And as Kenzie said, the information will be on the portal, Business at Its Best portal, so you can get that information if you would like to see it later and share with your staff or other businesses. We hope you'll join us next week for Business at Its Best on Thursday, May 14th. We have Amy Tylicki from WKU, and she'll be talking about communicating virtually when face-to-face is not an option. Even though we've been doing it a lot, I think there's still some tips and tricks that we probably could learn. So again, thank you everyone for participating, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.